So this is a quick video for demonstrating a new feature that I've added to Riff called Legato. As you might already know, Riff is a VST3 plugin or a audio units plugin, or it's also available as a Bitwig script controller. The features are the same across all of these available modules of Riff. It's also available as a Max for Live device. So one way or the other, you should be able to use Riff in whatever DAW that you use. I'm demonstrating this in Bitwig because I use Bitwig, but like I said, you don't need to be using Bitwig to use Riff. You can either use the VST3 instrument or the Max for Live instrument if you're using Ableton Live, or you can use this Bitwig script controller. And then there is a standalone version also available in the downloads, which you can directly use in case any of these available options do not work for you. That said, this is my work area for this particular demo. And then along with that, I do have this patch. Now, this is using Polygrid, which is a Bitwig specific construct, and hence it will not work if you're using some other DAW. But this particular patch has got nothing to do with what I'm going to demonstrate from Riff. Here I'm just combining a very commonly used technique in the Eurorack world for creating melodies. The common technique which has been around for a while, and I will paste the video for where I got this technique a while back. So basically the technique is you have a LFO device like this. You have an LFO. It can be on your Eurorack hardware LFO, or it can also be VCV rack, doesn't matter, or it can be Polygrid. So you feed it to a sample and hold device, and then you use a gate sequence to drive that sample and hold, which is then sent to a quantizer. In this case, I'm just extending this common pattern by using two LFOs. So I've got two LFOs. One is a triangle wave and the other is a sawtooth wave. Both are going to this mixer, which is then going through an attenuator and then into the sample and hold. Basically, two LFOs help me create a very interesting pattern as opposed to one LFO. So in this case, this LFO has a sawtooth shape and it is kind of rising, and at the same time it's occupying like 4 bars. It's occupying 4 bars, and then there is this triangle wave which is only occupying a quarter note. So what this helps me do is it kind of helps me to stick to a singular melody at any given time. So it's not like some random notes are being generated just because the sample and hold is there. And then I have got the DAW's transport layer itself to ensure that I re-trigger the phase of the LFOs each time so that I have a repeatable melody. I won't go too much into this because this is not the objective of the video. This is a very old technique for using a trigger sequencer to drive a LFO going through a sample and hold, which goes through a pitch quantizer. Then the pitch quantizer, I'm sending it to two oscillators. One is a wavetable oscillator and the other is a sub oscillator. And those two are going into a mixer, which is in turn sending both of those signals into a filter, which is ultimately going into a pluck envelope, which is also kind of shaping the cutoff itself along with the volume of this, the overall volume of this whole sequence. And then that is going to my audio out. As I said, this patch I just explained because I thought this was interesting to use these two LFOs, but this is not the aim of this video to show this patch. The aim of this video is this interesting sequence that we can send for this kind of an arrangement. If you want, you could totally get rid of this and use some completely different paradigm for the voice itself. You could use VCV rack and you could send the interesting gate sequence to VCV rack if you liked. Anyway, with that out of the way, as I said, this thing kind of is driven by a sequence, and we are going to use Bitwig controller script Riff, which, as I said, can be used interchangeably with the VST3 plugin of the same name. And maybe we can just use both of them to drive the point home. Let's begin with the Bitwig controller script. And the way to use this is we create a clip, a MIDI clip like this. Make sure that it's selected. That's very important. If this is not selected, the controller script will not work. So once it's selected, you can tap on generate. As you can see, it has generated a few things. and if I click again, it has generated something else. If I keep generating, it keeps on generating different patterns, right? Now in this case, I have this legato feature. If I do it, if I set it to off and keep generating, what it does is, let me see if I can, yeah, there it is. Can you see these two events over here? They're kind of stuck together. So what generate does is, it lets you kind of, let me set it to on, and now when I do generate, it still has the stuck together thingy, but it's far less. For example, in this one only there's one occurrence, but not everywhere else. If I keep going, again only one occurrence or maybe two. So basically it minimizes the occurrence of the possibility where two MIDI notes could be connected. Otherwise it's just the same pattern generation technique. This one is called pulse. There are many more styles, like pulse is the default. Pulse creates single note monophonic patterns like this. At the moment I've selected 16 note duration for the note length. I can do 8 note instead, and if I generate now, obviously the individual notes are a little longer, and then the pattern also tends to get longer if you use longer note lengths, as you can see that has happened over here. I'll jump back to 16 notes for now and generate a pattern. At this point what is happening is, this is the pattern that is generated by Riff, and that is feeding into the polygrid to this device over here through this gate. If I play it out, what I'm doing is, I'm trying to generate new patterns as I'm playing that. So if I and then the beauty of this patch when you use this LFO technique is, if you tweak the shape a little bit, or if you tweak the amount of LFO going into this mixer, it kind of changes the melody a little bit. So let's try that. Okay, so that's what it is doing, and I want to show that the Riff VST3 plugin also can do the same thing. The workflow is slightly different when it comes to the Riff VST plugin. Because it's a VST plugin, I have the liberty of putting together whatever UI I want. When it comes to a Bitwig script controller, I do not have those options. I have to go only with this kind of an arrangement, if that makes sense. I can never create a UI, so to speak. But with the VST3 paradigm, I can do those things. Ultimately, all of these features map apples to apples with this Bitwig script controller as well. And same applies for the standalone application as well as the Max for Live device for Riff. I'll create a separate video on how those various things kind of align with each other, but for now let's just use the VST3 plugin similar to how we were using the Bitwig script controller. Here the workflow is slightly different. Let me select the 16th note length and pulse, which is default in the style section. There are many more styles, you can try them out, but I'll stick to pulse for now. By the way, sparse pulse is just like pulse, it's just that it has a fewer set of notes created. And I'll keep the same combination AAAB, which means two variations will be created for the pattern, one for A, one for B, and the one for A will be repeated 3 times and the one for B will be repeated only 1 time. If I do AB, AC, then what that means is 3 patterns will be created, one for A, one for B, one for C, and then the pattern for A will be placed first, followed by the pattern for B, followed by the pattern for A, followed by the pattern for C. I'll stick to AAAB because that's what I was doing in the Bitwig script controller as well. Like I said, the workflow for this is slightly different. Instead of selecting a clip and then hitting generate, in the context of VST3, you need to click this green button and drag it to your DAW like this. So it has created a completely different riff if you think about it. And if I drag one more, it'll create another one. If I drag one more, it'll create yet another one. And if I play this out, oh, for some reason I'm dragging it. To make it a little interesting, I'm going to change the scale. Maybe I'll go for G Phrygian dominant. I think this is it. I do have another tool for these kind of things. It's called Johan. It also uses the basic Scribbletune paradigms, and since I'm in the key of G, I'm going to look up G Phrygian dominant. So it looks like this: G, G sharp, and then B, C, D, G, G sharp. Okay, this is not there. B is there. C, D, D sharp. E is not there. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so at the moment what I have demonstrated is using Riff just as a gate sequence generator. So it's only generating gate sequences, and the pitch is coming from this LFO thingy that I kind of mentioned. So you might wonder, is that the only utility of Riff? Actually, no, there's a lot more. Riff can also generate the pitch sequences, but I wanted to demonstrate this combination of using Riff just as a pattern sequencer, a gate sequencer, and combining that with something else. I'll create some more videos where I will use some of these other pattern styles and some of these other combinations and the other features within Riff separately. But for now, I think that's all I have. Do give it a shot, try it out, and let me know how it goes. Cheers.